Now, the critical blood supply shortage in our area continues. Remember, this supply helps trauma victims, cancer patients, and even NICU babies. Chelsea Smith of the Community Blood Center joins us live now to explain why we're still facing this shortage. So, Chelsea, thank you so much for telling us about this blood emergency. What is our current local blood supply?
Yep, of course. Thanks for having me as always. Right now, our blood supply is sitting around a 5 day supply overall. Like we always say, we really need to have a consistent 7 day supply of blood products on the shelf at all times in order to comfortably sustain our hospital's needs. And unfortunately, we've not reached that 7 day supply since the onset of the pandemic. So COVID-19, just like everyone else, really rocked our world, and we're still reeling from that. We're still trying to build back up our blood supply. And then unfortunately, in recent weeks, it took even a greater dip. So we're sitting at around a 4 or 5 day supply right now overall.
Yeah, and I feel like this is an ongoing conversation we've been having, right? Because it was COVID-19, bad weather, the holidays. There's so many compounding issues. But let's also talk about the shelf life of each blood donation, because I know that plays a part as well.
Absolutely. So the shelf life is a huge part of our collections when we're thinking about what we need for the future. A lot of times people don't understand, when we go into these blood emergencies, it's not necessarily because we didn't plan. It's because shelf life of blood products is relatively short. So for actual red blood cells, the shelf life is only 42 days, which means we need to be continually seeing donors coming back, making a donation. And then with plasma, we can actually freeze that for up to a year. Platelets, however, they only last 5 days. So that one is it's even more difficult to maintain that supply, especially when we don't have the number of donors that we need to normally maintain that 7 days. When we drop below what we typically need to see coming in our doors, that's when we enter into emergency territory. And unfortunately, that's where we're at right now for our platelets. For a lot of our blood types, we are at emergency levels.
Okay, well, thank you for explaining that to us. Now, we know that it's important to have all three of those blood products on supply, because if you need it right then, it can be a life or death situation. But what about the specific blood types that you're short on? Or does this blood emergency apply to all blood types?
Yeah, unfortunately, the emergency does apply to all blood types. We're short across the board. However, we are exceptionally short in our O types, so that's O negative blood types and O positive blood types, as well as B negative. So those donors, we really need you to come back and see us as soon as you can. You may know with O neg, that's the universal blood type, which means everybody in an emergency situation can receive a unit of blood from an O neg donor, which means our emergency rooms go through that a lot. So if we are well below what we need, well below that 7 day supply, it becomes particularly dangerous. So we definitely need to see an influx of O donors and B donors. And then we also need to see platelet donors. We're really low on our platelets right now as well. So pretty much across the board, if you're a donor, please come back and see us.
Well, thank you so much for explaining that, Chelsea.
Of course, thanks for having me.
And of course, you can go to savealifenow.org for information on where you can donate. You can also call 816-753-4040.